Item 8.2 is a report respecting the installation of a Hamilton sign in the forecourt of the City Hall. I understand there's no presentation, but Mayor Eisenberger, do you wish to speak to this matter?
And thank you for that opportunity. And in the yellow copies, you have a more complete report in the yellow copies with a picture on the back, if you flip it right over. And I've spoken to all members of council on this issue in terms of highlighting what was intended and what is proposed. And I want to thank Laura Babcock and PJ Mercanti for helping spearhead the fundraising on this issue, and I think what I think most have accepted as a really good idea to help animate the forecourt of City Hall and put a stamp on kind of the Hamilton image as well in terms of bringing some vitality to what is a fairly plain forecourt, but still something that could use some additional assistance. I have to say that some have suggested that others are spearheading this thing. It was actually my idea at the beginning of the year to come forward with some alternative plan, and I recall that this council, previous to my return, had considered a gateway sign, and decided that it wasn't something they were prepared to fund. And so I took it upon myself to see if we could come up with something that had a good design as well as something that could animate the forecourt. And we've got a local provider that has done the design and research, in fact, of many, many different signs and locations throughout the world. And we came up with, I think, a design that's relatively unique. So I know most members of council are well aware of the issues. It will require a heritage permit, and that certainly will be applied for. And there are the location that's identified in the picture is actually at the very front end of the forecourt on the left side over here. An alternate position is actually closer to the building on the same side, and I think that's something that will be pursued, subject to locates and all the things that facilities management would be concerned about. We've spoken with building department and the permanent sign bylaw people, and apparently none of those requirements apply to this particular sign. And so the only issue that remains to be sorted out is your approval and the Heritage Committee approval in terms of locating it at the forecourt. So I'm hopeful that we can get support for this, and I'm thankful for the efforts that others have put into this to make this happen. It would be, I think, a spectacular gift to the City of Hamilton from the business community to celebrate Canada 150. And I'm hopeful that it gets strong support here, that we can move on and get this thing done sometime this year.
Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the Mayor for bringing this forward and the work he's done behind the scenes. I guess we didn't, at the beginning of the agenda, Mr. Chairman, we didn't make an exemption to allow PJ Mercanti to possibly answer some questions. So I guess the Mayor, if possible, then could answer any of my curiosities, or committee could always have.
Sure, we can always have a motion to ask PJ to come up if you have questions for him.
Okay. Would you be comfortable with that, PJ, if possible? Is that all right, Mr. Chairman?
Just move it.
Could I move that now, that we allow that as a
move the motion that PJ be allowed to come up to the podium, seconded by Councillor Connolly. All in favor? Carried. PJ?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. PJ, I hope not putting you on the spot. You're very comfortable at this podium. You've been here many a time on many issues. So just, Mr. Chairman, through you to, thank you. Thanks, committee. Through you to PJ. PJ, just any initial comments before I ask a couple of questions in terms of the overall project?
We're certainly very excited, Laura Babcock and I, and I know that years ago, Laura was advocating for a Hamilton sign and something that would speak to the city, where we're going, and making sure that we have the proper branding for the city. So when Laura had talked about that years ago, and Mayor Fred connected on the idea of making this come to life, I was certainly very excited. I think it's great timing, and certainly look forward to helping to move this forward.
Thank you, PJ, for the opening remarks. So, Mr. Chairman, and again, maybe either the Mayor or PJ, I'll let between the two of them if they want to either answer or both. So this is only a curiosity. I remember, and again, credit to Laura Babcock, who was the thrust behind some form of branding and signage for the city. And I remember last term of council, if memory serves, and this is the curiosity, last term of council, when it was for a gateway sign, I remember a private fundraising campaign that Laura initiated. And if I recall, our city manager reported back that after a month or two of efforts, that it was a bit paltry in terms of the response in the private sector, and that was for the time of the Pan Am Games. And so that was for more of a gateway on the highway type of sign. So fast forward to this, in front of City Hall, Canada 150, and the only thing, my curiosity is, private sector has come forward in a way that they didn't a few years ago, and maybe either the mayor or PJ can maybe give me some ideas as to what the difference was today. Is it the location in front of City Hall, if you will, this august building and seat of municipal government? Is it the fact that the Canada 150 timing was different? That's just a curiosity on my part, Mr. Chairman. Either through to the mayor or PJ.
And then we'll go to the mayor afterwards if necessary.
So a few comments on that. I think the mayor's passion for this project certainly is helping to push it forward in a much different way. I also think that the timing of the Canada 150 is also another key aspect of that. You know, the business community thought this would be a great gift to the city, something to commemorate Canada and Hamilton. And I also think that in the last couple of years, there's been an enhanced momentum for all things Hamilton. I think that the city is moving forward, and this is another sign of the great things that are happening in Hamilton. And from a marketing and branding perspective, I think that this sign is timely. You know, today with social media, Facebook and Instagram, you know, people love taking pictures around city landmarks. I could see this sign being one of the most photographed images in all of Hamilton. I could see people, you know, bringing their friends from out of town, friends from across, you know, different countries into the core, taking pictures here. So I see it as a tremendous branding opportunity for the city as well. And it's not uncommon for cities to have big, exciting signs, and so I think it's a timely move for Hamilton to get behind this type of a project.
Thank you, PJ. Mr. Mayor?
So I can't say it much better than that. I think the collective, the gateway sign issue was kind of an isolating issue. It didn't allow for a lot of public access, and I think that's the difference in this particular instance. Is this is actually going to be in a place where we are inviting the public to come to. It's very much a Hamilton issue. If it hadn't been out in the gateway location at McQuestion Bridge area, which I think was the previous kind of locale, it was out of the way, not particularly accessible, and wouldn't really provide the kind of connection that I think people are interested in. And so a combination of some Hamilton pride, some additional Hamilton pride, the great work we're doing in the city of Hamilton in terms of the great vibe that we are all experiencing, and the renaissance that people are particularly proud of. And I think the business community has been quite interested in participating in that and demonstrating that through a gift of a sign. I think that speaks well to their view that we're moving in a very positive direction, and they want to be part of adding to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chairman, maybe to PJ as well, and thank you, PJ, yourself, as, if you will, co-captain of this campaign, and for all the private investors and donors that have come forward in our city. What's the expectation in terms of naming and recognition, if you will, Mr. Chairman? Through either the mayor or PJ?
PJ?
So I think that's still being formulated, and certainly the individuals that have signed on thus far aren't expecting a lot in the form of recognition for themselves. You know, they certainly do want to have, you know, be at the groundbreaking and you know, be a part of the excitement of the day when it is unveiled. But there certainly hasn't been, you know, big demands or expectations put upon us in the form of, you know, this is what we want in the form of recognition.
That's wonderful. Mr.
Just
Mayor?
to add to that, there will be a plaque on there somewhere.
Okay.
Not a massive one. It's not going to overshadow the sign. The sign is intended to be, speak to Hamilton, but somewhere on the sign there will be a plaque identifying the donors that have contributed to making it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chairman, the process, many in the community always argue about public process. Are we comfortable in terms of the sole source we did with the local artist? Mr. Chairman, through you to either the mayor or PJ. And again, I don't even know who the local artist was.
More appropriate to the mayor for that
Perfect.
question.
The local artist is identified in the report. His name is Mike. He is in Dundas, and he's had a history of doing public art in the city of Hamilton. It's a Hamilton Scenic Specialty. I'd actually invited him to come in and provide us some examples of signs around the world and then create some sort of a design. And he came up with a number of different ideas and examples and came up with what ultimately is on the back page here, which I think is a very interesting, yet formulaic type of sign, but one that provides access and lighting and variability in terms of changing all the lighting through digital means. And so, as it's a gift to the city of Hamilton, not unlike the Ukrainian statue gift that sits beside City Hall here, that was given to the city by the Ukrainian community. They fundraised it, they paid for it. I believe the city of Hamilton, in fact, paid for the base, as I recall it. Or the engineering ring that's out there that was funded through McMaster Engineering or the engineering community, and we provided the base and they provided the actual monument itself.
That was,
that
was the migration statue. You're right, Mr. Mayor.
And in the same way, this is a gift to the city of Hamilton at no cost to the city of Hamilton. They're going to provide all the capital costs as well as the installation costs that go with it. And so from a sole sourcing process, I mean, we could get into a design competition, I suppose, and that would probably take many more months.
Okay.
And I'm pretty comfortable with the design, and I would hope that this can be done this year. If we had to go through some other process, it would go well beyond that, and I'm not sure that it would change the end result significantly, quite frankly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And last question, if everything's a go today, are we satisfied that we can meet any of the heritage permit requirements, Mr. Chairman? I guess that would be more
probably better for the mayor.
Yeah, for the mayor. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, through you, no problem. Just if this is a go today, are we pretty well satisfied in your consultation that the heritage permit hopefully should be favorable down the road, and hopefully there won't be any hiccups with that?
Well, I'm hopeful. We've had other installations put in there in the past. Flower boxes come to mind, and I'm not sure that this detracts from the heritage of the building. I think it adds to the. Well, it could be permanent. I mean, it's going to be it's something that's intended to be there a long time, quite frankly. And so I'm hopeful that the heritage permit process will allow for this kind of addition to the forecourt that I think will add value.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the mayor, thanks to PJ and his team from a volunteer standpoint and from a financial contribution standpoint for getting this project over the goal line. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I have no other speakers. I want to turn the chair over to Councillor Muller for 1 second, just a few questions. Number one, I want to thank the mayor for his leadership on this and getting it across the finish line. I think it will enhance the front of City Hall and will give a destination for visitors to come and get their picture taken. I understand the colors can be changed, so it could be red and white in Canada Day, orange and Halloween, green and red at Christmas. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. This is digital lighting in the interior of the sign, and it can be changed to any range of colors that you can program into it. So it's completely variable. So if we have a Canada Day, it can be red and white. If we have a Hamilton Day, it can be blue and yellow. If there's a tragedy that happens in France or anywhere else, and we want to show sympathy, we can arrange it to the colors of the flag. Each one of those letters can be a different color, so it's got complete variability in terms of digital lighting.
Is it very simple to change the color? For example, if someone's having their birthday and their favorite color is yellow, can they make arrangements to flip it to yellow?
So there's a possibility that we could create an app that one could actually go to the sign and actually change the color at that moment in time.
On the fly?
On the fly, right. Now, that's something that obviously the city could turn on and off depending on what the events were. So if we had an event that we wanted to highlight in terms of color, that we could turn that off and have only that one color. But there's a potential for walking up to the sign through an app, change the colors as you desire at that moment in time, and then obviously revert back at some other time.
Okay, and the only negative question I've had from my constituency is there's a sign producer that wanted an opportunity to bid on it, and he won't be because we're sole sourcing this. I guess the answer to that is because the private sector is paying for it, and that was their decision.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you know, the folks that are going to be paying for it are comfortable with the design and the process that we went through to get to this design. And you know, I think that if they're going to provide a gift, I think they would have some say in terms of what the sign might look like and where it might go and how that gets delivered. So yeah, I would agree with your answer on that one.
Okay, and driving this morning, I slowed right down, not blocking traffic too much, just to take a final look. Our horticulture department does an amazing job with City Hall, particularly the front and the rear, but the front. Will any of those flower beds be lost because of this sign?
Not the flower beds themselves, but the large square flower blocks that are standing out there may move as a result of the location of the sign.
Oh, they're easy to move. They're just picked up by a forklift, but the actual beds are not going to be blocked by the sign.
We're not going to interfere with anything structurally on the City Hall forecourt.
Okay, and my last comment is the gateway sign at Highway 6 and the 403. I recall one of the biggest stumbling blocks of that one was the Book 7 regulations, where you had to do lane closures to go in there and do the installation and do the maintenance. And that was going to cost in excess of $200,000 to get the proper equipment in to formally close a lane on Highway 403 where that was done. And of course, we don't have that problem here. So I'm very much in support of this. So I'll take the chair back. Mr. Councilor Marula, I don't see any other requests for speakers. So, Councilor Farr.
Thanks, BJ, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate that there's a sense of urgency or an expeditious nature to bringing this forward, and for good reason, in my opinion. This is Canada 150, and I also appreciate that the private sector has stepped up, and that I truly do believe 100% that this will be a wonderful selfie opportunity at the very least, and show off our wonderful heritage here at City Hall. I just have one question, because it's generally coming from my constituency. I've seen 2 emails now, and it's with respect to, and it's from the arts community. And so there are some arts community asking why we're not appreciating the current process through our public art office culture. Certainly one that is time consuming. It works really well, but often takes 2 to 3 years. And that's out of the question considering your timelines here. So what is my answer, or what is our answer to those folks who rightly point out we do have a process, and in this case we are maybe not manipulating the process, but bypassing the public art process through you to PJ, and maybe the mayor would want to comment.
I think that a lot of the folks that are part of the project, the stakeholders, were very satisfied with the look and the design, felt that it spoke to Hamilton's heritage, and it had enough unique elements, artistic elements, to make it versatile, the lighting changes, etc. And I guess another fear would be that of, you know, if we had a more onerous process, it could delay things tremendously. And you know, there was a lot of fear that this could become one of those things that never gets done if we put it through a process of that nature. And you know, we felt that by keeping it relatively narrow, it would mitigate a lot of other ideas and what this could become, and the fear was that it may stray from its original vision to become something that it was never intended to be. So I guess it was primarily, you know, focused on you know, making sure that we can get it done within the Canada 150 year.
Okay. Okay. So Mayor Eisenberger, do you want to move it? And seconder, Councillor Conley. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. PJ, thanks again for your ongoing commitment to Hamilton.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Councilor Bruno.
Absolutely. Thank
just
you.
on this particular issue, I think some of the concerns that Councillor Farr brought forward is something that could potentially occur in the future as well. And I think because of the uniqueness of this type of endeavor, that we try to formulate a policy that if somebody in the future wants to donate from the private sector to the city, that policy outline exactly what the process is. So at present, we would have to justify ourselves every time it occurs, and I think we could use this example as a catalyst to have something enshrined in policy so it protects future endeavors accordingly.
Okay.
So if I could move that staff formulate or draft the policy accordingly, and that's seconded by Mayor Heisenberger.
Bring it here or bring it to GIC?
Here, I guess. Would be
Okay, to report back to Public Works. You got that, Madam Clerk? Okay, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.